Hi everyone, and welcome to my updated guide for the JAVAZON in 0.2 Daughter Hunt Path of Exile 2. I've been playing this build since launch. I am now level 92 in solo self-found, currently number 4 on the ladder, and I've been having a blast with this build. A lot of people keep asking me about what this build is, how does it work. I do have a planner for this, and I also made like a little video about this already like a few days ago when I was just still leveling up. But I have now taken it all the way into the end game. I've killed Arbiter with this, and it's an absolute breeze, I gotta say. So I want to show you what this is all about, and I will also talk about some of the details that are important in order to be successful with this. This build works pretty much from level 1. There is a bit of an evolution as you go. You get more skills and supports, and then a few things change. But overall, I've been playing the same thing from the start all the way to now, and I have no intention of switching anything. So this is absolutely amazing and great nostalgic value, I gotta say, coming from Diablo 2, JAVAZON, the Lightning Fury, memories basically, and it just feels great to play this. This is a completely ranged playstyle, which makes this also fairly safe. And we clear stuff so efficiently that most of the time there is nothing for like 2 screens around you whenever you throw your lightning spear. But we also have other tools in our kit here, for example the explosive spear and the storm lance, which are our main single target abilities. So this is what you get started with at in Act 1. Basically you start with the explosive spear, then you add the storm lance, and then slowly you build up for the lightning spear. And in the end, you weave all of those 3 abilities together in order to either clear the big packs with the lightning spear sometimes, or you do a big burst on elites and bosses, and you blast them down with the other 2. And then there's also Spear Field, which is a melee attack where you create like a field of spikes in the ground in front of you, which, for example, as you can see here right now as well, can also be pre-stacked, for example, on essences, on bosses, whenever there's like enemies running at you in rituals and whatnot. And it actually makes it so that nothing really approaches you because they are slowed and potentially just die on the way to you, which is really cool. So you have a lot of different situational tools, and this makes this playstyle really fun and engaging. It's not super complicated. There are many buttons to press, so if you like that, this is great. Personally, I'm having a blast with this. You can also kind of rely more on just kind of clearing with lightning speeder if you want, and play this a bit more chill. I am blasting through like the highest tier maps here. This is like a tier 17 zone right now, for example. So this is like the highest map in the game, and it's still a breeze, as you can see here. Here's also an example of boss kill. So this is like a highest tier map boss with a +4 difficulty. So it's like the kind of as tanky as it gets for map bosses out there, and also like a very tanky opponent here. And I still take them down fairly quickly. So I do like multiple hundreds of thousands of DPS right now, and my character is not nearly done. And again, this is solo self-found, so my weapon could be way better. I could have way more damage from various sources. My gems are not maxed, and so on. So there's a lot of stuff missing, and I think there is absolutely a possibility to scale this into even millions of DPS in terms of like a good burst. So just to give you a bit of an idea of where my character is at right now, I'm just going to show you this gear a little bit while I'm talking. But in the end, you don't really need much to get this going. I've been checking through like the uniques in every slot and try to find something that would maybe help us here. There are maybe various pieces that you could slot in if you really wanted, but overall you can just keep going with random rare items like this. Basically, stack life wherever you can, get your resistances up, a bunch of attributes, and then there's like a few damage stats, like, maybe some flat damage on the rings, and maybe some attack speed on the glove, and kind of like very standard stuff, to be honest. So it doesn't really need anything. I actually have a lot of increased item rarity here as well. I have like almost 100% increased item rarity on my setup here, which is very nice. And like this, I also get decent amounts of loot. And for your weapon in particular, you also want to focus on high physical damage. This is very similar to most other attack-based builds. You want a high % increased physical roll, a high flat physical roll, and then potentially other stats like crit bonus, attack speed, maybe skill ranks. This kind of stuff is good on the suffixes. And this is a bit of a perk of the Amazon here that we are applying with our Ascendancy. Accuracy is actually a really good stat to get on your weapon. You see, in fact, I have accuracy socketed from the vision rune. And this is because of this node here, penetrate. So here we get extra flat added damage based on the accuracy of the weapon, and it turns out that this is, for example, better than an iron rune. So it's a pretty curious thing here, and especially for Soul Self-Found, this makes getting a weapon much easier because, well, more often than not, you tend to get accuracy on your weapon. And I can also show you the rest of the tree. So in terms of the Ascendancy, if you want to start this out as level 1, you want to path through the bottom part first and then through the middle path. Originally, I wanted to go for the infusions as well, but I then decided that getting those frenzy charges is just too tedious, too slow, and it won't even help us that much even if I did. So there's various abilities that can consume frenzy charges that could give us the infusions, and I could get a buff from those frenzy charges, but the only realistic way to do this is with some electrocution or pin or something like that, and then combat frenzy. And I just decided against it. And instead I went like all in here with the weaknesses and this bonus here, which is kind of fine. But basically the big thing here is the crit here, especially in the late game. This scales up quite a lot. You have a lot of crit chance on this build. And you see on our tree, you have a lot of crit nodes that go with this here. All these blue nodes, there's some, the spear nodes down here have a bit of crit. And overall we have a bunch of crit nodes in various places here that we take. And like this, we get a lot of extra damage, especially later on, but in the early game, this already helps quite a lot. So while you're leveling through the campaign, if you get a bit of accuracy on your weapon and you have accuracy rune socketed there, you're going to feel the difference. So this is really nice. And then for the third lab, you get the weaknesses. This is also a huge damage multiplier, especially against the bosses. And also rarely, it's just going to blast them down. It doesn't help you in the other situations, but you have such great clear that it doesn't really matter. And then the last Ascendancy, you can kind of postpone it for a while. It's not that crazy, but it's still nice. And here's also the tree. If you want, you can actually look through the step-by-step progression here. So you can see this in the planner as well. So you see here exactly the pathing. But basically, we start out here in the Hunters area. There's a bunch of like damage and attack speed and these kind of things that we grab here at the start. Then there's also more elemental damage and so on. And here's more elemental damage, attack damage, and then we go down here to attack speed and the spear nodes. This is like the spear cluster that has very powerful nodes. So it just keeps going like this. And then we path over here to the projectile nodes. So this is somewhere like in the range of like level 40 or something like that. This is what the tree will look like. So you just pick up a lot of damage in the campaign early on. You shouldn't really need like, very defensive things or so. You just kind of go all in with the explosive spear and the stormlance. And then whenever you get a lightning spear and the level 3 support gems, so it's going to be like around Act 4 as well. Then you can also use lightning spear a lot more for the clearing, and then the build really pops off. And the way this continues is that we basically just path up here, take more damage and some other nodes here in the monk area. So there's like skill speed, mana regen, extra damage with crits. And then at some point we have kind of like exhausted the surrounding damage nodes. And this is roughly the end of campaign, early maps or so. And this is when you start investing into crit. So here we're gonna start taking all these big crit nodes. And then there's also various other crit nodes that we take here all over the place. And finally invest into some more accuracy and some defenses. Here's some block here on the bottom right, for example. And then we have stun threshold, which is kind of nice because you usually run around with a low life pool, so you can get stunned very easily, but this prevents that. And then a bunch of evasion stacking that we do just to stay in life better. In terms of the skill progression, you can see this here. I have them listed kind of in the order that you acquire them, and then kind of in the order of priority for the support gems. But this means that when you go through the campaign for the first time and you don't have access to level 2 and level 3 supports, then you might not have some of those gems available. So you might want to swap in something else for the time being. But this is kind of like what it should look like later on with like 5 links and having like a pretty decent setup once you're like progressing through the late game. The thing is that we have 3 separate ranged damage abilities that you all want to stack up as much as possible for. So there's a lot of supports that we try to fit in, and that you can also kind of swap around between the different skills if you like. So you can try to focus a little bit more on the explosive spear, or a little bit more on the stormlance, or a little bit more on the lightning spear. That is kind of up to you, but there are a few that are important that I want to highlight that should stay on certain skills. Number 1 is the explosive spear, and this is expedite. So expedite is less detonation time. Detonation time is 2.5 seconds. With that, it becomes 1.5 seconds. So this is something you're gonna get right away in, basically the first gem you take, or the second gem actually. In Act 1, in fact, you want to use overabundance, which gives you the option to have a second spear out, because explosive spear can have only 1 out at a time, and with overabundance, you can make that 2. And if you don't really have any other skills at the start, then this actually helps you. You can just throw 2 spears at once, they both pop and you repeat, and that's kind of how you can go through the first few levels. And then at level 14, you get Stormlance. And once you have that, you can remove the overabundance again, and then you throw 1 explosive, 1 storm, and kind of repeat that in a cycle. And like this, you can clear everything pretty easily. Besides the expedite on the explosive spear, we don't really care much about anything. We just kind of go damage where we can. So we have fire infusion here, retreat, blindside for some crit damage. Then we have the Stormlance. Stormlance has one important gem, which is Scattershot. Stormlance can have multiple of them pinned into the ground, so it looks like this. So we have 3 of them, and then you explode them with the explosive spear. So you want to do a combo. You don't want to just like throw the lightning into the ground and then let it stay there. You want to always do the combo, 1 explosive and then 1 lightning, and then you see the boom, and then you see the lightning pop off. So this is the combo, and you always want to combine them. All the other supports that we have here is the just extra damage again, primal armament for elemental damage, rising tempest, lightning infusion, and then you can just try to like fit whatever else you want, and you just get even more damage. Then we have the spear field. This is also an ability that comes on pretty early. This is a level 3 skill, so you get this like in the first few zones. This is this ability here. So like this, we create this field in the ground in front of us, and this is really helpful to kind of pre-stack. It's kind of like a pre-fire ability. For example, for bosses, when they spawn in, you can just like, do this like 3-4 times in the ground, and then they spawn in, and then they will just get instantly bursted basically. So that's a really cool part about it. What is also nice is that we can add rage here. So every one of those spears, if an enemy comes in contact, will give you a rage proc. So you get 3 rage. It has a cooldown of 0.5 seconds, but if there's multiple enemies running at you and you have the spear field or just a boss walking through it, you very easily keep up your rage, and you get a nice extra buff. It's 1% more attack damage per rage, goes up to 30, so this is very strong. And then we just have a bunch of other damage gems here. So I have Pursuit, which is kind of like the combo with the retreat. So one is for melee attacks, one is for projectile attacks, and you kind of like weave them together. So for example, in the typical early stage like campaign run or so, I would do like explosive, storm, spear field, and explosive, storm, spear field, something like that. So this is how we kind of like go through the zones and keep attacking. So like this, you always have your rage up, you always have those gems up, and those buffs of projectile attacks buffing melee and melee buffing ranged, and you don't really have to worry about anything. Next up, we have the lightning spear. This is our big clearing ability, and you want to combine this with barrage. So the way this works is that we press barrage, and then our spear like highlights like green like this, and this means our next attack will repeat 2 times at a reduced damage ratio, but we can buff that, and it's actually really close to what it originally started with. And like this, you can get a huge burst from this lightning spear, and we combine this with spectral volley support. So as we use a spectral volley, or as we attack with lightning spear rather, you see that there are these like floating like gray projectiles above my character. So this is a spectral volley. And if you use the skill, it will do less damage with the original throw. So when I shoot now, this does very little damage. But then when the spectral throw goes off, the spectral volley, it does a lot more damage. And they come all at once. And like this, you have a huge burst. And now if you combine this with barrage, you see that we get 3 of them at once. In fact, sometimes I get more than 3 at once. I'm not sure why exactly, but yeah, sometimes that's 4, sometimes that's 5, so it's even better than that. And so the idea is that at the end, when you have high enough attack speed, you actually have a very short barrage cooldown, so that you can actually cast barrage every 3 seconds exactly after the spectral volley goes off, and you have like this big burst every single time you throw the lightning spear. So this looks like this. And when this happens and these 3 spears go off, then they will fly into the pack that they usually go like in the direction you're facing, or maybe towards an enemy if there's something nearby, and do a huge burst damage. And then we combine that with Vault support, which is another support that perfectly synergizes with this idea of kind of delaying your attacks a little bit. You don't want to just like run around and permanently spam lightning spear like this. No, you just do like a barrage, 1 lightning spear cast, and then you do like something else. You do your explosive, you do your stormlance, you do your spear field, you wait like 2-3 seconds, wait for them to go off, and then you do again barrage, lightning spear. So this is the combo basically. And in the late stages, I get to the point where I barely cast anything else anymore because I have such incredible clear that this goes through like 2 screens and everything explodes. And only occasionally there's an elite surviving. I do like my stuff here, or on the bosses, of course, I do like my combo. So for example, on a boss you would start barrage, lightning spear, and then explosive, storm, spear field, explosive, storm, spear field. And then we can do the barrage thing again. And vault support is extremely powerful for lightning spear in particular because it adds extra chains. So like this you get insane amounts of extra clear, and this carries from the original attack also over to the spectral volley. And well, with the chains, suddenly we have a lot more hits, and like this we can kind of clear up packs very easily. So the way this vault support works is you can see this buff here on the top. This is the voltaic charge. This is this support gem. When we use lightning spear, it will go down to 0, and as we move, it goes up. And for every yard traveled, you get 3 of this charge. So you need to travel 10 yards, and then you get 30. So basically you always want to be kind of mobile, but you see it's not very much. And as long as you kind of keep walking, keep attacking like this, it will stack up to 30, and at 30 get the full power with 3 extra chains and 15% extra lightning damage, and those extra chains are really the kicker here. As for the other support, I actually 6-linked this skill first because I already had 5 links on Stormlands and Explosive, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna go straight from 4 to 6 here because I didn't have another 5 at this point. And I added lightning exposure, so we can also buff our Stormlands like this, so it buffs itself and then the other skill as well. That's kind of neat. And then I added long shot and momentum. This might come a bit of as a surprise, but it does work. If you are moving and you have fast enough movement speed, you can actually see the animation. There's like a green little flash when I use it. It's very, very subtle, but there's a green flash, as you can see. This is the momentum, and you can tell that this is working. But otherwise, you can also just throw in something else or leave it out if you don't have a 6-link yet. Now let's talk about the barrage. Barrage basically just buffs the skill even further. So we have a bunch of supports here. Premeditation is the most important one for plus 15% more damage. Also really nice is to add quality on barrage, at least once you have added it to the main skills. And it also gets extra damage on the repeats. And like this, we get actually relatively close to having triple damage from those 3 spears flying out. So that's really strong. There's Murderous Intent, we get Cull. This culls, for example, normal monsters at 30% already, so you can cull stuff really easily. And Ingenuity to help us reach this like around 3-second goal here. And lastly, if you have a 5-link, you can add an Arcane Tempo, kind of minor. So this is kind of like the roster of the main abilities that we have here. There are some more things that you can put in there and that you should. Number 1 is Disengage. So this is actually an ability you get at level 1, and you should also take it very soon. This just makes you mobile. You can kind of just jump around like this. And the cool part about this is it actually goes pretty fast, and it has a very short cooldown. Now the bad part about this is you have to like aim in a very awkward way. You have to like aim behind you, and for me with WASD, well, I kind of have to like walk in the direction backwards I want to walk, and then backflip into that direction as well. So this is kind of like how you can go really fast. You don't have to do this, but this just kind of speeds up your run, speeds up your campaign, It's just good to do it, I guess, if you want to save time. But at some point you have enough movement speed that it doesn't really matter, and you can kind of just walk around, and then you do like your throws like this, do like barrage, the lightning spear, maybe explosive, storm, and then another barrage, lightning spear. And at some point I don't really do the disengage anymore outside of actual combat scenarios. But it can speed you up, especially early on. And the supports that we have here are Unbreakable, Martial Tempo for some speed, and Cadence for even more speed. So we just try to speed up the animation as much as possible, and you see it's like really fast and fluid. The good thing about Disengage is also that it acts the same as a dodge roll, so you don't get hit by projectiles and by strikes during that window when you're in the air. So you can actually kind of flip through enemies like this. In fact, you can go through enemies, which dodge roll cannot. So this is actually an upside of using this skill over the dodge roll itself, but it does have a little cooldown, so keep that in mind. Another mobility tool that we have here is Thunderous Leap. This is something that I actually stopped using now, but it was kind of nice for various parts, especially in the campaign, jumping over cliffs, down the cliff, or something like that. Or it's just sometimes engaging a pack, you just jump in, and with a bunch of damage supports, you can actually just kind of one-shot stuff there. So you can add something like Fist of War, Close Combat, Momentum here if you don't have it on the Lightning Spear, for example. So there's like various things you can put there to do a bit of damage with this, or just use it as kind of like a utility tool and don't really care about the damage. In my case, I kind of stopped using it because I just didn't really have a need for it anymore, since I was just with Lightning Spear destroying entire screens at a time. I had no reason to engage packs directly anymore. One thing to note here is that a Spectral Volley, for whatever reason, cannot be assigned in the planner right now, so this is a bug, I guess, and you don't see it here. But Spectral Volley plus Volt are the two gems they want to put here. So I just don't have it, but I have it here in the notes. There are also some notes here that explain a bunch of things that I'm also telling you right now, but this is one of those. So for some reason this doesn't work. And now let's talk about our trusty little friend here, our companion, or the Tamed Beast. So first of all, how does Tamed Beast work? Well, you use the skill gem, you put it on your bar, and then you get an ability that you can then tame a beast with. So you can go to a rare elite beast enemy. It can only be a beast, so it can be like a wolf, spider, you know, whatever. There's a bunch of stuff. The gorilla, for example, in the jungle, and these kind of things, but they have to be a rare elite. And then you can cast it on them. You have like a 10-second window to kill them, and then you capture them. And this gem will transform into what you actually captured, which is looking like this. So in my case, I have this fettered spider, and it doesn't have to be this enemy in particular. What is more important is the mods. So there are various things that you can use to buff yourself or debuff enemies, which come in pretty handy. And this is the main reason to use this thing, besides the loyalty support, which allows the companion to take some of the damage that you would take, allowing us to get a bit more tanky. So these are kind of like the two main things. This thing doesn't do any damage. It also dies pretty easily as well. I have not really found like a good way to make them survive yet without really investing on the passive tree and stuff like that, which I don't really want to do. But I do have some good suggestions here. So the one thing that I have been using a lot is the periodic invulnerability aura, which is really neat. It has pretty good uptime actually, and it makes you completely invincible for 5 seconds when it pops. It has like a big yellow flash basically. And that is kind of nice. Now, another cool thing is a hasted aura, so you can get like around 10% movement speed and 15% attack speed or something like that. Also pretty good. And then there's a bunch of other stuff. There's like temporal bubble, there's like trail of ice, trail of lightning. You can get these ground effects, for example, as well, to get like shocks and chill. So that's pretty neat. And hinder aura, for example, is a thing. So there are these kind of things that you want to look out for. And all the other mods don't really matter. In fact, sometimes they can be a bit detrimental. For example, here, my pet also came with the periodic cold explosions. So it constantly spawns like these rings of ice, and then you get confused thinking that these are enemy explosions. So you want to actually avoid these kind of things. You want to try to get some aura that helps you, or some kind of effect that helps you, and then basically a bunch of nothing, or maybe something that helps the companion to stay alive, like evasive, resistance aura, resistance buff, or whatever. So there's like a few things like that. And in terms of like what kind of Tamed Beast you want to go for, well, that's kind of up to you, because yeah, it's really hard to actually find even like one mod that you want. Like, for example, this invulnerability aura, I've seen it like once on a beast. It's just so rare, and I took it, and that was it basically. I had this thing forever basically, and yeah, this is kind of something to keep in mind. It can take a long time to get it, but you can shortcut this a little bit by going into Act 3 or in Act 6 into the jungle ruins to the troubled camp. There's a checkpoint there, and next to that spawns a rare elite gorilla. As long as you don't kill that guy, you can reset at the checkpoint and then just kind of quick cycle through some of those elites until you get something, and this shouldn't take too long. So if you don't have anything, then this is the way to go. Now, another thing to note about the Tamed Beast is that the Tamed Beast gem cannot be reverted right now. Now GG has said they want to give us the option to do that, but right now, if you have this beast captured, it will stay in this gem. You have to get a new gem in order to capture another beast. So just keep this in mind. You want to have some of them ready. In fact, I always carry a Tamed Beast around with me, just in case I find something in the middle of a run and they're like, oh man, I really want this now. I've done this a few times actually throughout my playthrough now, and then I just swap this in like this, get rid of the other one, capture it, and then I have like actually a bit of a bank here of like a few of those different beasts that I captured. And you can also see that they come with different spirit costs, so this depends on the minion type. and the bigger ones cost more, and this might also mean that you can like min-max a little bit the cost here depending on which minion you're capturing exactly. And last but not least, how do you actually rank up those gems here? Do you see it as level 18 right now? And if I press on the 19 gem, I can just make a new tame beast because the game doesn't recognize that I have it already. So you have to go to all gems here, and this is where you can rank up your companion. So just keep this in mind. You have to press here. Now let's talk about the remaining spirit gems. So we have Wind Dancer. This is what I have in the planner. I think the damage is more than fine, so you don't really need any on our offensive buff. You can go Herald of Thunder. In fact, I have that, as you can see, but this is because I randomly got like a spirit roll here on my neck. Otherwise, I would not have done that. So I had to drop one of my active abilities, which was the Thunderous Leap. As I mentioned, I didn't really use it much anymore, and I had this here. But honestly, I don't really care much. The main advantage I see here from Herald of Thunder is that I can get an Innovate proc sometimes. So this actually has relatively decent uptime if I want to go down that route. And then you can add some extra damage support yet again in order to try to help this thing to actually get this Innovate proc. And this is kind of nice to have. But I think I'd rather go for the defense. Since we have such good clear already, Wind Dancer is probably the better move overall, especially in a Huntress being like a pretty squishy class. When it comes to like the very late game, you can also go for attrition, so you can leave out basically, you know, like both of these auras. And if you then have enough spirit, you can also go for this. So this is something you can do for like the pinnacle bosses or something like that. Or like if you're like kind of pushing up and boss fights take a while, you can consider this one. This is also pretty good. And that also pretty much sums it up for this setup here. As I said, I have the planner there. I have it linked in the description as well, so you can go check that out. This is in the Maxroll community build section here as well. So I don't have like a fully written Maxroll guide, but you can find this here. And I also have a lot of notes here. So if you are unsure about something, then go check this out. I have like all of the most important stuff listed. And I am also kind of still working on this so that I might expand this a little bit more. For example, like the item like dummies here that I have are like a little bit outdated or something. For like the end game stuff that I'm doing, I'm gonna put like probably the better bases and so on to make this a bit more like accurate for like what you're actually shooting for. But overall, it is pretty straightforward. Try to stack a bunch of evasion, get a lot of life, fix your resistances, and then get a big spear basically with big fist damage. And this is how you take it out. Everything else I have just explained. So I'm having a blast with the setup, and I hear from a lot of people from my stream that have, you know, tried a Huntress and then swapped to this build, or just tried a Huntress because of this build, and they seem to all be having a good time with this. So I'm having a ton of fun, and I'll see how this will continue, but I think I've kind of finalized the setup for the most part now. So you shouldn't really expect any major changes, even if I update the planner a little bit more in the future. So this is what I got here for now. I hope you like this. Let me know what you think, and go check out the planner and, you know, the build on Maxroll, of course, and I'll see you guys next time.